We're recording. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Noah. I'm one of the educators with Shortcuts. And today, as we do every Tuesday, we look at the basics and the advanced portions of Shortcuts. Today, we're looking at Spotlight. So, this is how Shortcuts actually handles surveys for your customers. How do we set that up? How does it work? How do you respond? Things like that. So, that's what we're going to look at today. So, if you're not able to sit through the whole presentation, that's okay. We are going to record this and we will be sending out a link a little bit later today. So for those that are new to the classroom sessions, so this is going to be approximately 30 to 40 minutes. We are recording. If you have to ask questions, I would suggest saving it to the end. Unless you need something pressing or some clarification, then go ahead and let me know. On the right side of your screen, you should have a GoToWebinar toolbar, which has a questions box and a chat box. So go ahead and use that in case you need to reach out or ask a question. So let's continue. So the focus of today, Spotlight. How does Spotlight work? What are exactly the surveys that Shortcuts works with? How do you configure your system? If you're using it or if you haven't used it in a while, we're going to be reviewing everything you need to do in both Shortcuts as well as in the online console. How to set up the frequency. If you have a Facebook page and you have customers that leave really nice reviews and you'd like to share it on Facebook, how do you set that up? So let's begin. So this is the setup as far as the Shortcuts point of sale system goes. The main Shortcut server is comparable to when you're setting up email campaigns. So the very first thing you want to do is not only make sure that you're capturing customers' phone or emails, but that they're also opting in to receive ratings and reviews. In previous classroom sessions, I mentioned that if you're dealing with confirmations, if you're dealing with email marketing, you of course want to have those questions whenever you receive a new client. But one of the options that you also have is for ratings and reviews. Now, not all of the Shortcuts users actually have surveys, have Spotlight. It's on one of our tier packages. I don't think it's on the Essentials package. I believe you have to be on Evolve or Elevate. So tier 2 or 3 should have these surveys. So if you don't have them, you can always reach out to client care and they can help get you set up. So the first thing you want to do, if you're using Spotlight or if you haven't used Spotlight but you know you have it and you want to start setting it up, you want to make sure that the option for ratings and reviews appears when you're capturing client data. Now, you can still manually go into a client card and opt them into that if they agree. But if you want to configure it, you go to Setup Configuration, and under the General tab, you're going to go to Clients, New Client Layout. And I'll show you the specific windows in just a second. So, the second has arrived. So let's jump out of the presentation. Let's go into Shortcuts. So if you have Spotlight or if you have surveys and you just want to see where it's configured, whenever we receive a new client, so in this case, I'm going to demonstrate. I'll go to New Client, and I have very specific questions that pop up. Of course, we want to capture a customer's first name, last name, phone number, things like that. But in addition to that, we want to opt them in to certain campaigns, whether we're in this case, rating and reviews. And you'll notice my ratings and review option only has email. I'm not really interested in using up my text or my SMS just to send out a survey. So I'd rather reserve those for when I'm sending out either marketing or when I'm sending out confirmations. So to configure that, if you don't see it, you're going to go to Setup, Setup Configuration, and on the left side, you're going to General and Clients. At the very top of the Clients options are 3 tabs: Occupation, Age Groups, Referrals. So these are your demographics. In case you've ever wondered, how do Shortcuts know what occupations my customers have? This is where you would configure them, add or remove the ones that you're not using. So for example, if you don't really have a lot of customers that are in the military and you don't need that option, you can just choose it and make it inactive. Or if you have customers that are employed in an industry that's not listed, you can press New and add a new field. The fourth tab at the top, New Client Layout. This is the one where you configure what options you want to see when you receive a new customer. Near the bottom of the list, there's three main sets that you want to look at. Accept marketing. This is what controls if the customer wants to opt in to receive either text, email marketing, or if you still send physical mailers out. This is where you have those options. The second set is accept appointment confirmations. So if a customer gives you both a phone number and an email, you can actually have the customer choose what their preferences are. So the customer says, if you send me a confirmation, I'd rather get a text. But if you send me any sort of marketing, I'd rather get an email. So we want to make sure those options are enabled. If you have a loyalty program and you want to send out messages, there is a loyalty option. We'll skip that for now and go to accept ratings and reviews. So you actually have the ability to send text surveys or email surveys. But again, I prefer to use my text credits for confirmations rather than for surveys. So I set my local test one here for emails only. So if you're interested in using Spotlight, if you're interested in surveys and you don't already have this active, you want to set this option up right away. So once you press done, now the email option will appear at the bottom of your list. So this is going to help customers receive surveys after their first visit. So let's jump back to the presentation. So now that you've told Shortcuts, okay, my customers have the ability to receive a survey. Where do you go to look at the surveys? Where do you go to see the responses to see how your business is trending? You have to go to the Shortcuts console. So the console is where you set up things like online booking or giving your staff permission to access their appointment books. In there, there's something called Spotlight. So this looks at customer feedback. This allows you to see how customers are responding, so how your business is actually trending month to month based on the surveys. And you can even see how you're trending against the industry averages. So to configure Spotlight, when you go into the console, you're going to go to Book Me Settings. So Book Me Settings is actually where you tell Shortcuts, if I decide to share a survey on Facebook, this is where you set the page. So Shortcuts will ask you to log in, and it'll ask you, do you give Shortcuts permission? Are you allowing it to post on your Facebook page the surveys that you approve of? So if you're not already using that, you might want to log into the Book Me and update these settings. And then to configure the actual Spotlight settings, in the console, you're going to go to Spotlight. And the first option you want to choose is Settings. So before we even talk about what the surveys look like, how do you respond to them, what Settings does is it controls the frequency of customer surveys. Now, by default, let's say that we have a customer that it's their very first visit with us, and we let them know we send out coupons on occasions for holidays, for special events, and for birthdays. And right away, the customer signs up to receive emails, and they opt in to receive surveys as well. So after the customer's first visit, they will get a survey. But then you have to decide, what is the frequency of their survey? Should they get one every time they visit? For a lot of customers, that may be overkill. So Settings allows you to change it to perhaps one survey a month, one survey every 3 months, every 6 months, one survey once a year. So by default, they get one survey after their first visit, and then you decide when should their follow-up surveys be. Right now, the most popular is between every 3 months or every 6 months. And then also on that window, you're going to choose how many status emails you'll receive. In a moment, we'll actually go to the actual window so you can see what I'm talking about. So you can decide, do I get a daily notification from Shortcuts, or should I only get an email when the customer wishes to speak with me? And then if you have a company website and you'd like to share your reviews on your company website, you do have the ability to generate what's called a website plugin. So instead of just random surveys appearing on your webpage, you're picking and choosing the best responses that customers have given you. So if somebody's giving specific employees a glowing review and you'd really like to share it with all of your customers on your webpage, those are the only surveys that pop up, not the random ones that said this was a great visit and that was it. That doesn't really tell the customer a lot. So you get to choose which surveys appear on your own website plugin so that you can post them on your webpage. Now, the actual surveys that go out, when the customer writes a response, when they score you, in the Spotlight settings, you can press the Reviews button. And this will actually give you a list of all of the surveys that the customers have responded to and what they had to say. And if there's something really nice on there, you of course can share it on Facebook. You can share it on your own company webpage if you're using the plugin. If you have a My Local Salon directory page set up, you can also share it there. Now, for those customers in the US that have My Local Salon, those Spotlight surveys will appear automatically on the My Local Salon page every 2 weeks. So you don't necessarily have to review them or approve them. They'll just appear there. And this constant update is something that helps Google find your business because it notices that the name of your salon or your spa or your barbershop keeps coming up with these reviews. So your contact details, your online booking, those are constantly being updated, and that helps Google find you, especially when customers are just doing a general search in your community. So you have the ability to read, respond, share the surveys, and let's say you just want to take a look at some of these in detail later, you can flag them, you can leave notes for yourself. So to respond to a review, if you have one that you really like, you can press the details button and you actually have two different options. There's a public comment or a private comment. Now, the public one may be something that you share on your company page or on your My Local Salon page. So this is something like, hey, check out this review from one of my favorite guests. And that's all it will be added to the end of the customer review so that the customer can see and anybody searching for you can actually see that the salon is engaged with their clients, with their community. The second type of option is the private option. And what this allows you to do is send a one-time response to your customer. So you might want to leave something like your phone number and your email because this is designed to try to figure out what happened with a negative review. So if you reach out right away, introduce yourself, I'm the owner, I'm the manager of the salon, let's talk about what happened and let's see if we can fix it for your next visit. Doing so actually sort of resets their responses and it gives the customer the ability to adjust the score that they gave you. And for a lot of the customers using Spotlight, just the fact that you looked at their review, that you reached out to them, that you offered to help them on their next visit is enough to get the customer to change a negative review into a positive. So be sure to use that. Now, let's assume a customer ignores a public or a private comment. They gave you a really bad review. They give the staff a really bad review. You do have the ability to remove that survey so that it never appears on My Local Salon. It never appears anywhere else. But do be warned, you can only remove 3 surveys every 6 months. So that's why you want to save the private messages and use those instead to try to get the customer to change their score. But we want to be completely transparent with the community. There's never been a site that's always had 100% positive reviews across the board forever and ever, because there will always be finicky customers. So let's actually look at these settings and talk about the surveys. So once your Shortcuts is set up, you go to the console. So most of you are hopefully familiar with this page. On the left side, we're going to go to Spotlight. So in Spotlight, depending on how many salons you have, you actually get scores for the different salons. So in my case, I'm using two test salons, Shortcuts Salon 1 and Shortcut Salon 2. If I click the blue tiles where it says NPS, that stands for Net Promoter Score. Pressing on one of the tiles will take me to the survey responses for that particular location. That would be the same thing as if I press the reviews button on the right side. Again, Shortcuts will say, okay, these are the reviews from this particular site. Now from here, you actually have how you're going from month to month, what your averages are, what your score is, and how you rank up against the industry averages. The surveys themselves are very short. They're actually only 6 questions long. And these are the 6 specific categories. So we have a question on what was the customer's overall impression of the salon, of the service they received? What did they think of the cleanliness, friendliness of the environment, the care they received, the quality, and any professional advice they received? And of course, the big two. Would they recommend your business to a friend or family member? And was this a good value for their dollar? Now, you cannot change the questions themselves. Sometimes we get this on when we're doing the presentation. The reason we have these 6 specific questions is because of a book called The Ultimate Question 2.0. And in it, the author, Mr. Reichheld, I think I'm pronouncing that right, he taught us these were the 6 questions that you can ask any customer that will give you the maximum responses. So that's why they're in very specific categories. So once you're here, and let's say you decide to take a look at the surveys, that's when you would press review. Now, since I'm not really using Angel's Test Salon right now, I don't have any surveys that have been going out. But this is the window that would prompt those, that would share with me the information and allow me to set a private or a public comment. Now let's go back. So when dealing with frequency, that's on the right side, that's settings. So again, by default, Shortcuts will send a survey on the customer's very first visit. And that's if you get their email or their text. But then when should their follow-up surveys be? Every visit, once a month, every 3 months, 6 months, or once a year. Again, 3 months is usually the most popular so that we don't swamp the customers. Plus, if a customer receives something like a color service, you might not see them for a few months. So we want to space these out. And then, how should Shortcuts send the surveys? Would you prefer emails or email and text? Most customers prefer an email survey. So that's why I have that option. At the bottom, we have 3 additional settings. Shortcuts has the ability to send you an email, a daily notification email. So it'll say, today I sent out 12 surveys, 5 customers responded. Well, of course, throughout the year, you're going to receive hundreds of emails like that. So you may not necessarily want to get a daily update. Instead, the next 2 contact notifications are a little more important. The first one is contact notification. At the bottom of the survey, there's a little checkbox that says, I would like to be contacted by the business. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. Perhaps the customer has a question. They want to ask, I noticed that you guys don't carry any Redken. Is there any chance you might carry that in the future? So they just have a general question. Or I didn't see on your service menu that you do any kid services. I'd like to bring my daughter in. Do you offer any girls' haircuts? Things like that. So they just have a question for you. The third option is detractor notification. So the surveys are on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. Now, a customer that scores you a 9 and a 10, these are considered promoters. So these are the people that jump on Facebook, jump on Twitter, jump on Yelp, and they'll say, hey, I really like this salon, you should go check them out. So they're advertising for you. The people that score you a 7 or an 8, those are considered passive. Maybe they're new in town, they're trying out different salons. They neither had a good nor a bad experience. They just perhaps got a haircut and have no opinion about it. So they're not really helping or hurting the business. However, in any of those categories, if somebody scores you a 6 or below, those are considered detractors. So these are people that are going to go out of their way to complain on social media that they didn't like your business, they didn't like the way they were treated. So they're going to hurt you just by word of mouth. So of course, you should get an email whenever somebody scores you 6 or below. So this is your chance to send that private message. Send your phone number, send your email, and say, "Hi, we noticed that you weren't happy with something that happened in the business. Let's talk about it. Give me a call, send me an email, and let's see if we can fix it for your next visit." Again, that sort of resets their score and allows them to perhaps give you a higher score. Now, at the bottom, the customer never sees where the emails go to. It's invisible to them. But down here is where you can set who should get a copy of this email. So you can actually have multiple emails here. In this case, Angel gets a copy and I get a copy whenever a customer responds to a survey, or they are detractors on their scores. So make sure to update these settings. If you're using Spotlight or if you haven't looked at them in a while, update these settings. Now, for your business, if you decide, okay, if I get really great reviews, I'd like to share it on my company website. Then on the right side, that's where you go to Website Plugin. Now, by default, Shortcuts will share 3 surveys at a time out of 20 that you've personally approved. So it'll continuously scroll through these surveys again and again, and it'll actually wait 10 seconds in between each one before it goes to the next one. Now, if you have a lot of information on your web page and you don't want to share too many surveys at a time, you can change this number, maybe 1 or 2 surveys at a time. But you want to sample out of a bigger field, out of 40 surveys that you've personally reviewed. And of course, wait 10 seconds. If I press the generate button on the right side, this is the actual code that you would place on your web page so that those surveys come up. Now, let me bring up one of the sites. So I'm going to go to a new tab and we're going to visit Freddie B Salon. So I know he's one of the customers that uses Shortcuts. I'm not sure if the business is open right now, so we might not have any surveys that appear, but let's take a look. So Freddie, he reviews his surveys a couple of times a month, and the ones he really likes, he approves them. Now, he actually puts his surveys on his team page. So on here, on the right side, you'll see reviews loads up. And if we give it a few seconds, if there are any surveys, they'll actually appear. But again, I'm not sure if Freddie's open right now because of the pandemic, so there may not be reviews to share. But this is normally where they appear. So with your Java code, you can actually put your reviews. Oh, there it is. So there's one that's recent. So you can actually put the reviews on any page you'd like. He chose this one because if a customer mentions a specific person, in this case, the first review is for Hector, you can actually put a name and a face together. So this is very clever for Freddie. And there it scrolls to the next one. So you can see every 10 seconds, every review that Freddie has personally approved will appear on this page. And it'll have the name of the customer and the day they left their review. So let's jump back. So that's your website plugin settings. And we'll go back to the main page. So let's go back to our presentation here. So we've looked at how to configure your Shortcuts point of sale system to make sure it includes the question, when you have a new client, are they opting in to receive ratings and reviews? We've looked at the console. How do you set up your surveys? Where do you go to review them? If you're going to share them on your company page, how do you get your Java code? If you'd like to set the frequency for 3 months or just once a year, where do you go to do that? So we've taken a look at the setup and configuration, and we've discussed a little bit about what does the customer see and how do you respond to the client. So this brings us full circle. So is there any questions on Spotlight surveys? Any questions on the configurations that you'd like to review? Let me know. So give everybody a moment if you're going to use the chat or the question bar. And I'm going to bring up the question bar on my side so I can see anything that gets typed. Now, again, this is not necessarily included with all of the shortcuts packages. So if you go to the console and the Spotlight thing is there, but it says the module is not activated for you, then you might want to see about upgrading your package with shortcuts or contacting customer care for that. I don't think we have any questions. Checking the chat bar as well. And I think people are just writing down notes. If you're a manager, you probably have to convince your boss this is a good idea. And surveys are always a really great idea because if these are going out automatically, and if you have your My Local Salon page set up, and that's being updated every 2 weeks with your responses, that's going to help your profile online, regardless of the search engine. Search engines are looking for the frequency of your information. So whenever your name comes up, business hours, business details, phone number, constantly keeps getting refreshed online, that increases your visibility. So it's easier for Google to find you, easier for Bing to find you, or any of the other search engines. So let's continue. So if you're not using Spotlight or if you have an older shortcuts package and you want to see about upgrading so that you can get that, go ahead and reach out to us. Let our customer care team know. And if you have questions on configuring it, or you missed a step, or something doesn't seem correct to you, you can always reach out to education as well. So we're at education@shortcuts.net. I'll get back to you, or one of my colleagues will get back to you. And we always check our social media as well. So if you message us on Facebook or on Instagram, Shortcuts North America, then we will get back to you. So I don't think we have any questions today, and that's fine with me. So as always, we do Tuesday classroom sessions on the basics and a few advanced features and shortcuts. Be sure to sign up, especially as we start rolling out the businesses, as the pandemic starts to turn the corner, and you're allowed to have more and more customers in your locations. Let us know and or sign up for our classroom sessions and we'll help you get set up. All right, everybody. Thank you for attending, and we'll see you again real soon. Have a great day, everybody.